What exactly went wrong in Adamawa State? What exactly? How would you rate INEC's performance in Saturday's supplementary elections? And 9 years after this Chibok school kidnap, how safe are schools in northern Nigeria particularly, and the whole of the country in a whole? Well, we'll try to answer some of these questions on the show today, even as I bid you welcome to another Monday's edition of the Newsroom. The Newsroom is a weekly show brought to you by Nigeria Info's Newsroom, where we take a critical look at some of the big stories that have made the rounds in the course of the past 7 or 8 days. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. It feels good to be here once again at 22 minutes past the 6 o'clock hour. Apologies for starting the show a little late. Had some complications. But we're here. And remember, we're streaming the show live on Facebook and on YouTube. Our Facebook handle is Nigeria Info 993. And on YouTube, it is Nigeria Info FM. Let's take a quick wrap of some of the big stories that made the rounds in the last 7 days. Of course, the biggest of them all, you might want to say, is the 7-story building collapse right here in Banana Island, Lagos. And all of the, I would say, I'm trying not to use, okay, let me even use it, because I think that's possibly what it is. The shenanigans, that went through with its coverage. First, journalists were barred from going into the, the estate, and then they were allowed to enter. And it seemed, or it looked like there were efforts to have controlled information going out. That's how it appeared. Anyway, in the course of the week, we were later told, or we found out that one person eventually was confirmed dead. Thankfully a lot others were rescued. But anyway, the federal government also approved a lot of money, 6 billion naira thereabouts, for maintenance of the third mainland bridge. And we hear there's a huge possibility, I think it was the Minister of Works who insinuated it in the course of the last few days, that we might have the bridge closed down this weekend for repairs. I think it's about time, even though it's going to cost some little hardship. But hey, better late than never. We also had the Federal Executive Council in the course of the week approving 495 million naira for the installation of scanners in all railway stations across the country. And we had the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu talking about the fact that his rival in the February 25th presidential elections, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, lacks the right to challenge his victory. Also in the course of the week, we saw the Nigeria police force dismissing 3 of its officials who went gaga about 2 weeks ago or thereabouts and were shooting in the air at some party. The CBN also told us that there are plans to mop up dormant account balances and unclaimed funds up to 10 years and put all of them in a trust fund. And of course, over the weekend, Saturday to be precise, 2 days ago, we had supplementary elections across the country, which has generated a whole lot of conversations. One of them is going to be our major topic of discussion today. And today, just today, aviation unions actually started, their warning strike. Passengers stranded in some airports. Thankfully, I didn't have to go through that. Last time I was involved in that kind of major incidences. Okay, it wasn't actually a strike. It was, I think, It was a shortage of aviation fuel, I think, or there was a strike. I'm not so sure again. No, there wasn't that. I wasn't involved. Yeah, I'm talking about the one that was. I think it was the week before President Buhari's inauguration, or the week after he was inaugurated. I can't really remember, but there was a strike. I was at the airport from 6 was it 7 a.m. or thereabout till about 5 or 6 p.m. that day. It wasn't funny. It honestly wasn't funny. I think it was there I met a very good friend of mine. Anyway, enough of my stories and going about. Let's get into the thick of the action, people. Over the weekend, Saturday to be precise, elections took place in so many places across the country where either they could not hold or they needed to hold to be able to declare a winner. Some issues in these areas. But of course, the most talked about was the drama we actually saw in Adamawa state, where, against all odds, the resident electoral commissioner in the state, Hudu Yunusa Ari, decided to take laws into his own hands and announce the APC candidate as the winner. The funny thing was, in announcing the winner, there were no figures given. And you wonder, how do you announce a winner without figures? And then about an hour later, we had INEC put out a statement. Festus Okoye, the INEC head of voter education, put out a statement saying, hey, whatever must have been announced is null and void. And of course, the INEC commissioner and the returning officer were summoned to Abuja. Well, the latest update from that story is that the rec has been suspended. He's been told to stay away from everything that has to do with elections. And the administrative secretary in Adamawa has now been directed to take full charge of INEC in the state with immediate effect. If you've not been in Nigeria for a while, or you haven't heard anything about Nigeria, you probably think this is a scene from a movie. But no, it isn't. It's a real life story. And of course, all the shenanigans that had to do with stripping or beating or manhandling or assaulting the INEC officials and a DSTV official. Apologies for that one. My producer here trying to reach out to our guest on the show. It was just a mess. It was an absolute mess. But hopefully, we're going to do justice to that conversation. As we're expecting to be joined by, of course, public affairs analyst. It looks like we've been able to get him on the show. Mr. Ambrose Igboke is joining us to discuss the Adamawa shenanigans. A very good evening to you and welcome to the newsroom, Mr. Ambrose.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Well, I don't know if you heard me, but I just said if someone is not living in Nigeria and heard this story about what happened in Adamawa over the weekend, yesterday to be precise, the person will probably think it's a scene from a movie. But it's not actually a scene from a movie. It's actually the reality. Could you tell us how we actually got to this point? Because it still feels somehow to me.
Your card. Yeah. INEC has increasingly made itself a laughing stock among the Committee of Nations. It has made the other countries of the world, even in West Africa here, to look at Nigeria as a nation on the stage of a comedy and error show. This INEC is one of the INEC that has the highest support so far in electionary history in Nigeria. They were given all they asked for. Money, technology, even were given a new electoral act to back them up. Yet, they messed up. When Professor Mahmoud Yakubu resumed as INEC chair, I think in 2018, the first set of election he held were all inconclusive. Edo, Osho, I think I went on that stage. I did say on my TV appearances then that the I in INEC is almost becoming known as inconclusive Electoral Commission instead of independence. Along the years, he started improving, and then last year he came with a master stroke, a pure new electoral act, and technology infusion into the electoral act made us think that it's Eureka. When in November last year, rumors of that INEC is not going to use the card reader or go to transmit to the IRF portal as promised as the methods of election, Mahum Yakubu did a press conference, a world press conference, assuring Nigeria, almost swearing that it is a rumor that they must use Beaver to transmit election results from the polling unit and it must be domiciled in the IRF portal. What happened? Nothing. And today, Mahmoud Yakubu did not even feel it as a duty to even inform Nigerians what happened. No apologies, nothing. He carries on arrogantly as he owes nobody an apology. I mean, I don't know how to describe this. So, when the INEC chairman himself behaves in an uncomplimentary manner, in an unethical manner, what do you expect the rest to do? So the resident electoral commissioners are actually doing what the chairman is doing as well. Because the 2023 election was supposed to be a watershed in our electionary history, where we have fully adopted technology to be part of our election. But INEC messed it up. Instead, it is becoming a caricature. We were hoping that the 2023 election would be like the 1993 election, that was free and fair and credible. But 30 years down the line, from option A4 to 30 years later, where we have the Beaver, IRF, and the rest, it's still same. So I am totally disappointed. We didn't even learn from the 25th of February election, from the 18th March election. INEC had all it had to deploy, personnel, resources, and whatever have you to at this Adamawa, because there's no excuse of being overstretched in the 36 days. They would have deployed, resources there. But what do we have? That the man who's supposed to do the correct thing is even the one causing all the confusion, the Resident Electoral Commission. So it's a comedy of error. And as the novel by Alan Patton will say, cry, my beloved country.
So as it is right now, the Independent National Electoral Commission, never mind the fact that you refer to them as inconclusive, put out a statement saying that the commission has now withdrawn its delegated powers from Barrister Hudu Yunusa Ari as the resident electoral commissioner for the state, and accordingly, he has been directed to stay away from the commission's office in Adamawa State forthwith. And like you pointed out, if the man at the helm of affairs, the national chairman, hasn't totally covered himself in glory, in a few areas, as regards the conduct of the elections on February the 25th and March 18th this year, to a large extent, you might not have so much to say about one of his recs, who has gone this angle. But some have said that one of the reasons we are where we are right now is that people who take laws into their hands, people who fall foul of the law, are not brought to book, are not charged, are not taken to court. There's no consequence. And that's why we have all of these comedies of error or comedy of errors, that have been going through in our society. Are you of this school of thought?
Of course, I am. Because INEC is quick to punish or suspend the Resident Electoral Commission in Adamawa. But INEC will not suspend his own chairman for lying to Nigerians. So these are double standards. It's just been made a scapegoat because it's just behaving like a typical INEC. You see, when you are given public trust, you must guide it delicately. There's no room for carelessness. There's no room for foolishness. There is no room for dishonesty. And that is what we have been saying. Why will you be giving all this money? Why will you be giving all these resources? And at the same time, you cannot even perform.
But to be fair to INEC, Mr. Ambrose, we all hailed, at least to a large extent, the governorship elections in Ekiti. We all hailed INEC, for doing a good job with the elections in Osun, and to some extent the elections in Anambra, and I think just before it, the one in Edo State. So it's not all doom and gloom, some might want to say.
At this stage of our national development, with the kind of technology we have deployed, with the kind of resources we have committed, with the kind of threshold we have in history, when other parts of the world are talking about artificial intelligence, when people are talking about going on holiday in space, where we are talking about the height of telemedicine, where surgeries can be done via AI, we cannot even conduct an election. So there is no space for these little excuses, because there was no need for them if the person just did the right thing. So we cannot isolate Osun, we cannot isolate Edo, we cannot isolate Anambra. These are just 3 states in 36 states. What is the ratio? So we should be talking about that we didn't get it well in 2 states and that we got it in 34 states, rather than saying we got it well in 3 states and then we didn't get it well in the many 33 states. So if INEC has experimented with the election in Edo and done the same in Osun and done the same in Anambra, it would have prepared sufficient ground for it to test run the technologies and other kinds of innovations or technologies is bringing to the table for the 2023 election. Yes. I mean, I knew what it took, and we all witnessed the process of passing the 2022 Electoral Act.
True that.
We all knew how it was fought against the electronic transmission of results. And this man just took us for a ride. So if you know you won't do it, why did you go through the gamut of that process? Did you know the debate? So I'm not going to give INEC kudos for, it's supposed to be a seamless process. When you do a credible election, the participants, whether winners or losers, will be happy with the outcome. But when somebody feels shortchanged and holds the short end of the stick, that is why you start having our judiciary system being overstretched with election petitions left and right and center.
Talking about petitions, which is the final question I was about to ask you. It seems to me that we've now gotten to the point where all the politicians, because we can't take away the fact that politicians, and some INEC officials are the ones in collusion, causing all of these shenanigans. It feels like, we've gotten to the point where what most of the politicians want is just announce the result, declare us winner, and then let's go to court. Let courts sort out the issues. Instead of the other way around where the process is almost flawless, everything is done, according to the letter of the law, and winners are declared and everybody goes home and there's less petitions. It feels like there's just this penchant for just declare somebody a winner and then let's go and solve the issues in court. Or am I getting it wrong?
When you come to court, in fact, I pity the judiciary, because as you said, what ought to be the process for a simple election is being complicated by political parties, while choosing their candidates. It's been complicated by INEC, by short execution, and then you now leave the final arbitration to the courts. And in court, it is the amount of evidence, irrefutable evidence that you're able to bring. And then also that the law is an ass. There's always a lacuna. There's always a gap that can be exploited by a brilliant lawyer.
True.
And so a credible case can be thrown out for the issue of mere technicality without even linking up to the substantive case. Just technicality can throw it away. So that is why the people want to mar the process, go to court, because the court, they can use any avenue to manipulate their way out, using the lacunas in the constitution or in the laws. But when you do a free and fair election from the party primary level, if somebody is defeated in a primary that is well organized, that is credible, the person will congratulate the winner and even work to support the winner of his party primaries. Same thing in the general election. If people see that the process is credible and the masses have their say through their electoral votes, then the result will be accepted. And that is why you hear people calling on the winners to congratulate them. Well, when somebody such change and you are expecting to accept the I take it, let's go to court. There's an African proverb that says when you say tell somebody let's go to court, that means somebody's relative is there as a judge.
All right, Mr. Ambrose, we would have to leave it at this. I can feel the frustrations in your voice, and of course that's how a lot of Nigerians actually feel. But thank you very much for joining us on the newsroom.
Thank you for having me this evening.
All right, that was of course political analyst Ambrose Igboke giving us his thoughts right there. From there, let's tell you that it's now 9 years since 276 girls were kidnapped from a boarding school in Chibok, Borno State. 9 years after, at least 96 of them are still being held captive. 14th of April 2014 is a day the people of Chibok will never ever forget. And of course, you could argue that it also has a direct implication on the politics of Nigeria, never mind the fact that it was a terrorist issue. The present day government rode on the back of the kidnap of those girls. You could argue to win power and get into government, promising to ensure that all of them are rescued. Well, some have come back home, some escaped, some were rescued by the military, but there's still at least 90 of them who are still in captive. What's been happening? We're being joined on the show this evening by the coordinator of Bring Back Our Girls in Lagos, Habiba Balogun. Do we have Habiba on the line? Habiba, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the newsroom.
Thank you.
Apologies, we're starting this interview a little late, but we'll try to get as much as we can in the less time we have. It's 9 years. How do you feel about the progress or lack of it that has been made by the government in getting those girls still in captivity back?
Yeah. My feelings are like in three parts. So on one hand, I'm really, really happy that we've gotten 126 of those 219 girls back. About 100 of them are in school. Some have graduated. Some are getting married. One got married just last week in Chibok. So I'm very happy about that. My heart is broken, along with the parents, that we have 92 now. As of last week, Friday, we got confirmation from the parents that there are 92 girls that are still unaccounted for after 9 years. Can you imagine 365 days in a year times 9? It's heartbreaking. And then angry because there are 14 girls that the army was able to liberate last year, between 6 months and 1.5 years. So the army has been doing a fantastic job. But those 14 children or 14 women they are now, they are still in the custody of Borno State government. So they were rescued from captivity or whatever circumstances they were in. They were handed over by the military to the Borno State government, and the parents have been kept in the dark. So it's almost like I've come from one custody, one involuntary custody, to another involuntary custody. So I'm very angry about that. And haven't we learned in 9 years how to engage with parents and families and communities when things like this happen? Let people have control over their lives. So very distressed about that. Very, very distressed about that.
Will I be safe to say that the government has actually failed the girls, those still in captivity, and their families?
Well, the families have said it by themselves. This happened under Goodluck Jonathan, and people thought it was political and so on. We were very upset where the advocacy started. People thought it was an opposition group. Even the APC at the time, who were in opposition, were supporting Bring Back Our Girls. Then the Buhari administration came in. At first, they were engaging with the parents. They were engaging with Bring Back Our Girls and other stakeholders. But when they were not able to produce results, and we continued the pressure, they too started seeing the movement as opposition. And the girls have come back. We thank God. We thank God. We thank the government. We thank our armed forces. We thank the vigilantes. We thank everybody who was responsible, who played a role in getting them back. But for those 92 girls that are accounted for, what would they be feeling? What would they be feeling? And, some of their classmates, one of their classmates was with us on Saturday when we marked the 9th anniversary in Lagos. And she was saying that please, she's pleading with us that we mustn't stop. We mustn't stop the pressure. We mustn't stop the demand. We mustn't stop the prayers. Because this time last year, she was 100. Here, 92. She didn't come to this. They're still thinking, what activity? So for those girls, absolutely, they don't care. They don't know that there's things that are supposed to be looking after them and, caring for them, rescuing them, making sure this doesn't happen to other school children.
Well, the Buhari administration is less than 6 weeks away or thereabouts to the end of its tenure. There's going to be another government on May the 29th. Thankfully, at least in that light, it's still the same APC. What do you think the new administration should be doing in terms of securing the release of these girls?
Well, what I think is that the incoming administration, in their transition programs, they should put the existing administration under pressure not to hand over this legacy to them. That please do whatever you need to do so that when that May 29th comes, we are able to announce in our inaugural that we brought all these girls back. And we have also rescued other school children. Another 80 children were kidnapped in Kaduna State this April.
Yep.
So that new administration should be working with the existing one to say, look, let's close this door. And let's also announce all the plans to make sure this door cannot be reopened in the future. That's what we're expecting. We're not looking beyond May 29. We want the promises that Buhari made, not just once. He made several promises. We want him to say, I am going to make sure before I leave, I fulfill those promises. There's still time.
Okay, on a final note, if you can do this in a minute, I would love that. How do you think we can prevent these kidnaps? I know you're not much of a, it's not your responsibility, as a security, like you're not a security expert, but you just mentioned another 80 being kidnapped a few days ago. We're talking about one, and there's another one. How do you think we can go, past this kind of setting where young girls or young boys are kidnapped from their schools?
There has to be political will, because there have been reports done, there have been analysis done. Everybody knows the cause of all this insurgency. It's poverty and it's ignorance from lack of education, and high unemployment and climate change, and land disputes between families. They've analyzed all of this. They know what is causing all this insurgency. They know what to do. And then even while they're waiting to do things like that, there's a Safe Schools initiative, which has been very well spelled out. It was funded initially. We don't know what has happened to the money. There's a victim support fund. So there's things they can do in the interim to secure, not make it by bandits. It wasn't by terrorists. They are doing it purely for ransom. So prevent schools from being soft targets. It's possible to do. And then you know the causes of all this insurgency. You know why why these young people can be recruited by the terrorist groups. It has been analyzed. They have even told you themselves why they are doing it. Good governance. Create an environment of hope for our citizens, not hopelessness. And then it will be much harder for people to recruit. So they know what to do, so I don't need to tell them their own job. My own job is to keep putting them under pressure and pressure my fellow citizens to join me and other groups to keep putting government under pressure. They will act when they are put under pressure. So we have to keep the pressure on.
All right, thank you very much. We've been speaking to Habiba Balogun, the coordinator of Bring Back Our Girls right here in Lagos. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the newsroom this evening.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's our show for today. It's been a pleasure doing this. Thank you to the whole of the newsroom, and especially the producer of the show sitting just beside me, who also happens to be my personal assistant, eating all my money. And then Precious Okun, thank you very much. It was a wonderful package. Hopefully, guys, we'll do this again next week, Monday. Hopefully, we won't have to discuss something as horrible as what the wreck did in Adamawa, or hopefully we'll be talking about that the girls still in captivity are back. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. The sports Femi and the gang rather will be here in a matter of minutes. I was calling them sports gang like we call them in Port Harcourt, but hey, Femi and the gang will be here in a matter of minutes. My name until they do, have yourselves a wonderful evening, and I am out of here.
Christmas I spent with my mom and my dad. I'm so tripping, wishing that I could go back.
What a fruitful Ramadan day it's been. You've given it your 100%, and now it's time to give your body refreshment and replenishment with Chivita fruit juice and a great iftar meal. And just before it's time to go to bed, you share glasses of Hollandia yogurt and dates with loved ones. That's how you make this your best Ramadan ever. Ramadan Kareem from Hollandia Dairy and Chivita Fruit Juice.
Ruth Okorocha is the champion from March 2022. She beat Deborah Pamsat in an epic fight.